Hey everyone, Paul here. Let's do our recap. King Mathis reigns over the whole known world, and the rest of the world is split into state-like territories called realms. The City of Brass is such a realm, and each realm has a hierarchy, as does the world. Lord Blake Williams is the Lord of the City of Brass, making Michelo his heir. And the other Williams kids also hold rank, including Tempest, who is the current lady of the Copper Castle, because her mother is gone. Here we go. Chapter 7, Tempest. "Repeat it again," shouted Buladritz, the scarred old woman from Tempest's nightmares. Though she was aged, thick of body, and ugly as a rat with 4 chins, Bula had found some way to wriggle herself into the Copper Castle and become an etiquette instructor. Worse, Tempest's etiquette instructor. Apparently, back in her home country, Pandus 2, they dressed like painted eggs in silk. Bright pinks and yellows raced across her belly and up around her shoulders, holding in the folds of fat, fighting to break free, and, in places, losing the battle. She walked briskly to Tempest's side, the fat in her face quivering, but the scowl painted in deep red lipstick remaining thick and unmoving. The switch in her hand slammed down on Tempest's tabletop, in the place where she was supposed to be reading. The snap didn't make Tempest jump. This was the 100th time Buladritz had done it. But the prospect of having that switch turned on Tempest made her sit up. In her thick, almost incomprehensible accent, Bula barked, "Repeat, or I will bring out the silkworms again and let them crawl on your face." "Okay," said Tempest. "Geez, I'll do it." She looked down at the poem, written out for her in type. There was something about type print that she felt made her life much more convenient. She pursed her lips and read, "Sky above and world below, clouds shift often under my feet. The sun rises and begins to glow. As princess, I must be elite. Now my day is dawning, before me a chance at peace. I will not run, but continue forward, ere moving, ne'er to cease. A kiss on the hand, I will not complain. Oft times I will kneel or smile if needed, so long as the monster's trust I maintain, and his armies all sated and conceited. Now my day is dawning, before me a chance at peace. I will not run, but continue forward, ere moving, ne'er to cease. Storms arise and generals command, fields of fire, ash, and dust. But I can quell them with a hand, and save them all from death and rust. Now my day is dawning, before me a chance at peace. I will not run, but continue forward, ere moving, ne'er to cease." Princess Aliona Windsail of Ataria Lakes. "You will be reciting these verses to your father the day after next," Bula intoned. "I suggest you put them to memory this evening and repeat them no less than 3 times before you stand before his honor. Is something amiss, little girl?" Oh yes, something was definitely amiss. "Why do I have to memorize this?" she asked. "What good is it to me?" "It is verse," Bula answered curtly. "Literature is designated to us for our cultivation and civil propriety." "I'm not a princess. I'm not allowed to command armies. And if an old man kisses me on the hand, I'd punch him right in the nose for it." "Little girl, this is not proper speech for a lady." "You want proper speech? Vex. Blast. Corgi fig. Nutting nothing." "Enough!" shouted Bula. "I will hear nothing else out of you, or your father will hear about this." Tempest closed her mouth. If nothing else, Buladritz would rat on her to her father, the snake. "You may not be a princess," she began, "but there is a thin line between a lord of a realm and King Mathis. The gods protect him. Each governs his or her stewardship with discipline and grace, and each has sons and daughters that must act properly. King Mathis has a son your age, Lady Tempest, his grace, Prince Gareth. It may fall upon you to treat with Prince Gareth in the near future, and if you don't act like a lady, the king may decide your father is unfit to rule. A lord's children are regal, refined, well-versed, kind, and most of all dutiful," Tempest finished. She had heard what the lord's children were many times, but she often wondered where cunning fit into the mix, or strategic maneuvering, or being good with a long rifle, or flying. Oh, how she wished she could be flying right now. She had her own airship, at least by name it was her own. Since Julia had moved to Grimtide Mountain and married Sarador the Crusty, and her mother was gone, all possessions of the Lady of the Copper Castle were hers now, including the Wind's Leaf, her airship. The Wind's Leaf wasn't big, but it was fast, and soared through the sky with such precision that it could weave through schools of fish with ease, dodging sky turtles and puffers alike. Tempest was lost in thoughts of the sky when Bula pulled her back down. "See that you remember it," Bula snorted. "It is necessary for the little girl of the Copper Castle to learn the ways of court and lords. Prince Gareth could be king someday, and he will marry a woman of his father's choosing when he turns 18. Who better to marry than a well-versed daughter of Lord Williams from the City of Brass?" Tempest had seen the prince once, but it was many months ago. Her family had traveled to Citrocity on business or something, and the boy was so fat, Michelo had called him Prince Girth, which she was pretty sure meant too lardy to sit on just one chair. That had made her smile, but she wasn't smiling now. "I don't want to marry the prince," she blurted out, almost throwing up. She knew regular girls liked thin, muscly boys with short but stylish hair and a gallant personality. Then, all at once, she realized she was thinking of Jonas. "You will marry the man your father tells you to marry. Is that clear? You have no choice in the matter, little girl. If the gods permit, a man as noble as the king will see fit to wed you to his son. But you must be a proper lady when the decision is made. Elsewise, you'll have no chance." Tempest slouched in her chair. Prince. Why is he a prince? What makes him so special? Without intending, her thoughts drifted to Jonas. Jonas would be a better prince than that soggy blunderbutt. "Prince Gareth is a prince," Bula said, "because his father is a king." "What makes a king? Why is King Mathis on the Sustan seat?" Bula stared at her, wondering what had caused this sudden interest in royalty. This is a lesson for Turbelt and not me. I suppose the answer is blood." "Blood? What's that mean? How can blood make a king?" "Shut your proper mouth and I will tell you, little girl. A king is made in 2 ways. First, through the blood of his father, who was king before him. When the king dies, the blood passes from father to son, or brother if there is no son. This is called royal succession." Prince Gareth, she thought. He'll be king after his father dies. She hated the thought of him on the throne. "And the second way?" Bula shuddered, a fear or weakness Tempest had never seen in her. "A man can purchase kingship with the blood of the people that follow him. King Mathis was such a man. Before he became king, there were many kings. Kings of wealth, poor kings, kings that had lands, and kings that moved armies. There were kings of the day, parading in the streets, and kings of the night, in black cloaks and shadows. It was a fearful time to live, not knowing if the man you called king would be alive to lead you tomorrow. Wars upon wars weaved their way through the tapestry of history, and it was like this for hundreds of years. Your princess, Aliona Winsail, lived in these times. Then Mathis rose, your father, Lord Williams, and many others beside him. They vowed to put an end to the wars, and Mathis grew in popularity. This was called the War of Kings. He paid for the sustenance seat with your father's blood, and for 8 years, Mathis and his men engulfed the entire world, all 9 lands, and brought them under one banner. When it was over, Mathis sat down and began his rule. That is why King Mathis leads us. The kind gods protect him. The gods, Tempest began. The gods aren't kind. If they were, they wouldn't have taken my mother away. Bula didn't believe in Lurius the Kraken, as most of the people in the Rigid Coast did. She was from Mantua, a city off the northern coast of Pandus II. Up there, they believed in some sea dragon. There were 4 gods of Skyworld, but Tempest couldn't name them, except her own. But something itched at the back of her mind that she couldn't let go. Everyone said the gods were gracious and merciful and beautiful and blessed. But when life happens and people leave it, the gods are never to blame. If the gods are not kind, little girl, what are they? Bula stood with her hands on her hips, irritated. I don't know, Tempest admitted, but I'll find out someday. Nonsense, Bula uttered. You will have this verse memorized for your father, and you'll not say another word until our time is up. The lesson lasted 30 more minutes before Tempest was allowed to leave. Still silent, she stood and closed the door behind her. The hallway was lit by a row of gaslight lamps above her, and though they dotted the corridor with light, each one brightened and dimmed as she passed, making her feel like she was passing through cones of light that examined her and judged her as her teachers did. One said, "This girl is not fit to walk our halls," while another whispered, "Not a proper lady at all." They were watching her. In fact, she knew the entire realm was watching her. Their voices filled her head. Why can't she be like her older sisters? Will she ever take responsibility for her actions? When will she finally crack and crumble? "Shut up," she said aloud, looking at a particularly bright lamp. Feeling foolish, she picked up speed, hoping to get past the lights as quick as possible and on to her next lesson, mathematics, with Leela Fezziwick. The hallway bent ahead, and she swung wide to round it at a run. To her surprise, a pair of glasses met her on the other side of the corner, and she ran straight into them. Papers went flying, glasses tumbled to the ground, and pain spiked her forehead and shoulder. He was there, in a heap next to her. "Torben," she managed. "I'm so sorry." Her brother was small for his age, now 15, though he was bigger than Tempest. His bright hair and extra white skin set him apart from the rest of the Williams kids, though Julia shared his hair color. She assumed that whatever dormant genes were passed from their father and mother revealed themselves in Torben. It gave him a unique look, something she wished she had. Torben adjusted his burnt orange doublet, poking his finger through the hole where a button had just been. He ran his hand through his hair and said, "It's quite all right, Tempest. Sometimes I feel like running out of Bula's classroom also, but..." Realizing his glasses were missing, he began to pat the floor in search of them. Tempest snatched them up and handed them over. Torben was nearly blind without his glasses, and with a quick glance, she noticed none of the lenses were cracked. Thank goodness. Among the distant island's merchandise, complex inventions like these could be very costly to replace. Sand would be harvested and transported from the shifting sands. From there, the lenses would be crafted in the hot forges of Grimtide Mountain by a specialized glassblower, And finally the rims would be crafted, here in the mech hall on the north end of the city of Brass. What? Tutors often said I didn't apply myself. They just don't know how much I actually learn. Thanks, he muttered, sliding his glasses into place. What was so important that had you running? She didn't want to tell him the truth. She didn't know how he would take it. Just wanted to see the sun gardens before Miss Fezziwig's class. The lie slid smoothly off her tongue, but she wondered if using the sun gardens as her default excuse was starting to draw suspicion. She spent too much time talking about visiting the area and not enough time actually going there. To avoid his eyes and help him on his way, Tempest began picking up his papers and putting them in a pile. He helped too, but hesitantly. Temp, is something wrong? I've noticed you're not yourself lately. What do you mean? She kept her head ducked and her hair a barrier between them. I can't place it, he said, but you seem quiet, maybe more serious than usual. You used to laugh. I miss your laugh. Would you look at me? She froze and gently lifted her head to meet his gaze. What is it? He asked. If it's Bula, I can talk to Father. Perhaps another tutor could help. It's not Bula, she said quickly. Not really, anyway. There's something different about the castle. Kind of a hollow feeling. Can you feel it? Since Mom left, he said. It's because of her? You feel bad that she's not around anymore? Like you wish she was here, but you know that she's not coming back? Again, he was only hitting part of the problem. It was much deeper than that, but she couldn't unload her troubles on him today. Not on his birthday. Something like that, she managed, picking up his papers and handing them over. Can we talk later? I'll see you at dinner? He nodded. Okay. Happy birthday. And in a flash, she was moving again, higher into the upper floors of the castle. From the depths of the castle, Tempest drew herself up into the light. What she had heard was that those who built the castle dug straight into the hill behind it to create more space. Down they dug, but they never dug out the other side. Perhaps they feared the top of the hill would suddenly collapse, or maybe it was easier to build shafts and excavate rocks with pulleys and winches, or it was the fact that the tumult edge was on the other side, and the mists from the sea would fill the hall with the Kraken god's influence. Grandma Tinny said once that the builders of the castle would rather face the monsters of the deep than chance angering the god that lived on their doorstep. There was a man named Sisterly the Sinister who drove his people into the castle to dig. He was the one who constructed the first refinery and gave the king of the Rigid Coast his first taste of cold brass. Sisterly was sure there was more than copper in the deeps of the hill, so he dug straight down in 30 places for miles, each shaft over 20 feet wide. Great machines dipped into the earth and carried out hundreds of tons of rock and ore. Sisterly had slaves to do the digging, and he only let them rest and eat after 2 weeks of work. They dug far enough down that if a man fell from the ledge, he would have 3 hours of praying to Lirius before he died. And he'd need it too. Lirius is not the forgiving type. Grandpa Tom spoke of strong men. They had the castle hundreds of years ago before Sisterly the Sinister, and were led by a man named Torben Nickel, the Hammer of Men, they called him. He was built like a rock, and the mountain bowed to him. He took 77 men, each with a wife and 7 sons, into the unexplored depths of the mountain. You see, there's natural caves all twisted about under the mountain, and a man could get lost after 3 turns. Seeing as how men disappeared so often down there, Torben made a rope tied together from a single hair of each of the men's wives. Then he tied the rope to the entrance and disappeared into the darkness for an entire month. The wives and sons worried for them, but at the turn of the moon, Torben reappeared, beaten and bloody. with every single man who went with him. While they were away, they had slain 199 monstrous beasts with razor-sharp fangs and claws as long as your arm. Each man was wounded, but none died. When asked about their adventure, Torben only laughed and said, "It was no adventure. I tamed the mountain by mixing the blood of the monsters with that of my own men. Now those shadows will stay below as long as my men control this castle." Torben claimed he was only protecting his citizens, and his war with the monsters was a necessary step to peace. Tempest finally reached her destination. She had once heard that there were secret passages built into the castle, and that if a person wished to know the secrets of the castle, they had to start with those tunnels. Jonas was the first to suggest to her that secret passages usually opened when a sconce was pulled or twisted upside down. So, Tempest had spent the last few weeks pulling on and twisting each sconce. She'd removed the torch, then put her weight on it to see if it budged. If that didn't work, she'd twist it, but try as she might, each one held fast. All, that is, except one. She found the one last night, third from the left, in Holy Man Mastiff's private hall. Whether or not he knew it was there was beside the point. When Tempest had pulled on it, a square of bricks folded back at her knees and revealed an opening just large enough for her to fit through. At the time, she couldn't stay to explore, and Holy Man Mastiff had heard the noise of stone on stone and called out for his guards. She ran faster than she had ever run. Now was different. The Holy Man would be at court with her father, and she had no other break between lessons until the feast tonight. This would be her only chance if she wanted to get it explored soon. As she planned, no one was in the hall, and the other guards in the Holy Man's wing were posted at the entrance to his bedroom and solar. She patted her bag, reminding herself that she had a gas lamp and enough fuel to last a few hours, a snack from Bard Oriander he'd left when he went on stage to play a song on the pipes, and an extra shoe to squash spiders on the ceiling. She had to be ready for anything. She pulled on the torch holder, and the small door opened as it had the night before. She lit the gas lamp, shined it into the opening, and judged the size of the corridor. What she saw was quite astonishing. The top of a pale ladder glinted back at her that descended further into the depths of the mountain. A switch and lever were visible, and she pulled on it. Simultaneously, the sconce resumed its position on the wall, and the door disappeared back into the wall. It was a way to cover her tracks. If she slipped in and pulled the lever, it would appear like she had never been in the hallway at all. Brilliant work. She opened the passage again, slipped inside, wriggling to fit her hips into the small gap. Whoever made this was tiny, and had it made for tiny people, she guessed. But she knew Holy Man Mastiff was not using the passage at all. Was she the first down this way in generations? The prospect excited her. She got her knees and thighs over the ladder and got a foothold. Then she pulled on the lever and watched the hallway firelight dim and die. Her lamp was all she had now, and as she looked down the ladder, she saw nothing as far as the light extended. She hooked the lamp to her belt and began to descend.